Maricel Santos, a 28-year-old Filipina chasing dreams in Dubai, lived a life filled with secrets. Behind her innocent smile, she juggled affairs with three powerful men: a real estate tycoon with unimaginable wealth, an Emirati businessman bound by tradition yet consumed by desire, and an ambitious expat banker who promised her a future. To each of them, she was everything, but when lies, jealousy, and pride collided, their obsession ended not in love, but in murder. Maricel Santos was only 28 when she left her small town in the Philippines, carrying nothing more than a suitcase, a few pesos in her wallet, and the hopes of her family on her shoulders. Life had not been easy where she grew up. Her father had fallen ill years earlier, leaving her mother to juggle odd jobs just to keep food on the table. Maricel was the eldest of three siblings, and the weight of responsibility always pressed heavily on her. When she finally secured a job offer in Dubai as an administrative assistant at a luxury hotel, it felt like the start of a new chapter, not just for her, but for everyone depending on her back home. Arriving in the city was overwhelming. Towering skyscrapers lined the streets, luxury cars zipped past, and everything gleamed with the promise of opportunity. The hotel where she worked was a hub for the rich and powerful, a place where businessmen, tourists, and dignitaries mingled under chandeliers and marble floors. Maricel's role seemed simple on paper, handling bookings, paperwork, and guest requests, but in reality, it placed her in the orbit of people who lived in a world far beyond her reach. She adapted quickly, presenting herself as diligent and polite, always with a smile that put guests at ease. But behind her professionalism, she noticed how easily charm and attention could open doors. Wealthy men often lingered at the front desk, asking unnecessary questions just to catch her gaze. Others slipped business cards into her hand, offering to take her out to dinners she could never afford on her salary. At first, she ignored it. Her focus was on sending money back home, paying for her siblings' education, and saving for her mother's medical expenses. But Dubai was a city that never stopped reminding her of what she didn't have: fine clothes, expensive jewelry, and the security she longed for. Maricel lived in a small shared apartment with other migrant workers, cramped and noisy, far from the polished life she saw every day at the hotel. Each night, she scrolled through her phone, staring at social media posts of glamorous women draped in designer outfits and living lifestyles she could only dream of. Something inside her began to shift. She didn't want to just survive, she wanted to belong. She wanted to taste the luxury that paraded in front of her eyes every single day. What started as curiosity soon grew into determination. Maricel told herself she deserved more than endless sacrifice. It was this desire, unspoken yet burning, that set her on a path where admiration would turn into obsession, and ambition would lead her into the lives of men who held both power and danger in their hands. Maricel's life began to change when she allowed herself to accept the attention that had been circling her from the moment she arrived in Dubai. It started innocently, with dinners she couldn't refuse, gifts she hadn't expected, and promises whispered in private moments. One man alone might have satisfied her desire for comfort, but each offered something the others could not. Slowly, without planning it, she became entangled with three men, all powerful in their own ways, and all blind to the truth that they were sharing the same woman. The first was a wealthy real estate tycoon, a man in his early 50s who had built towers that touched the skyline. He was the kind of person everyone respected in business circles, admired for his fortune and feared for his influence. To Maricel, he was a provider. He gave her jewelry she had only seen in magazines, slipped envelopes of cash into her bag, and introduced her to a lifestyle she had once only admired from a distance. With him, she felt secure, as though her financial worries were erased with every swipe of his black credit card. The second man was an Emirati businessman, elegant and secretive, who lived a double life himself. To the world, he was a family man, married with children, deeply rooted in tradition. But with Maricel, he sought escape from responsibility. He had the power to open doors for her in the city, and he delighted in showing her the hidden luxury that Dubai offered only to its elite, exclusive restaurants, private desert parties, and villas no tourist could enter. He promised discretion, but his possessiveness hinted at a darker side. For him, Maricel was not just a lover, but a prize he intended to keep. The third man was an expat banker, younger than the others and far more vulnerable. He was the only one who spoke to Maricel about a future, about marriage, and about building a life together beyond the glitter of Dubai. He offered her emotional security, a kind of stability the others never discussed. His affection was genuine, almost naive, and Maricel clung to it when she needed comfort. But even as he spoke of love, she found herself unable to let go of the wealth and power the other two offered. Each man fulfilled a different role in her life, and she convinced herself she could balance it, yet beneath the surface, danger was already forming. Maricel did not realize that her carefully crafted world was fragile, and all it would take was one discovery, one slip, for everything to collapse in ways she could never imagine. The balance Maricel thought she had created began to shift the moment the banker noticed something that did not add up. One evening, as she prepared to meet him for dinner, a necklace slipped from her purse. It was no ordinary piece of jewelry. It was a diamond set so fine that it could never have been purchased on her modest salary, nor with the savings she occasionally sent back home. When he asked her about it, she brushed it off as a gift from a distant relative. But the suspicion took root, and it would not leave his mind. He had always sensed that Maricel was not completely honest, but this moment ignited his determination to uncover the truth. The banker, careful and calculating, turned to a private investigator. Within weeks, every secret Maricel had tried to keep hidden began to surface. The investigator followed her discreetly, capturing photographs of her dining in exclusive restaurants with a real estate tycoon and quietly entering the home of the Emirati businessman late at night. Each report added to the banker's fury. To him, love had been real, promises had been genuine, and now it seemed he had been nothing more than a fool. His obsession grew, transforming his heartbreak into something darker and more dangerous. Meanwhile, the Emirati businessman began noticing changes in Maricel's behavior. She no longer rushed to answer his calls, and her excuses became flimsy. His pride could not accept being ignored. He started following her movements, instructing a driver to keep track of where she went after work. Soon his suspicions were confirmed when he spotted her stepping out of a car that did not belong to him. In that moment, jealousy turned into rage, and he vowed that if she betrayed him, she would regret it. The real estate tycoon, too, began to sense something amiss. Maricel's requests for money grew bolder, and her visits became less frequent. To a man used to control, this distance felt like an insult. He questioned her loyalty, unaware that two other men were already circling the same truth he was beginning to suspect. By the time each of the three men realized they were not alone in Maricel's life, it was too late for her to turn back. The lies had piled too high, and the walls of her secret world were closing in. What had begun as an escape from hardship had now placed her at the center of three men's fury. And when powerful men feel betrayed, they do not walk away quietly. They fight, and they destroy whatever threatens their pride. The night that sealed Maricel's fate began like a celebration. The real estate tycoon had organized an exclusive gathering at his private villa on the outskirts of the city, inviting a carefully selected list of associates, business partners, and a few women who, like Maricel, added glamour to the evening. The villa was lavish, glowing with golden lights, music echoing across the poolside, and waiters carrying trays of champagne. For Maricel, this invitation felt like proof of her importance. She dressed carefully, stepping into the role of someone who belonged among the elite. But she had no idea that her every move was being watched by men whose jealousy had reached a boiling point. The banker, already consumed by betrayal, knew of the party through the investigator's reports. He made his way there uninvited, determined to confront her. The Emirati businessman, equally enraged by her perceived distance, had also discovered the event and arrived under the pretense of business with the tycoon. By chance or fate, all three men who had been orbiting Maricel's double life found themselves under the same roof that evening. As the night unfolded, the mood shifted. Guests enjoyed the lavish setting, but tension simmered in the shadows. The tycoon kept Maricel close, showing her off as though she were a possession. Across the room, the banker's gaze never left her, his jaw tight with restrained anger. The Emirati businessman lingered nearby, his presence heavy and watchful. None of the men exchanged words in public, but each knew the truth. The unspoken rivalry created an invisible storm, waiting for the right moment to erupt. By midnight, the music had softened, and some guests began to leave. Maricel, unaware of the storm gathering around her, stepped out into the garden to breathe. That was when the banker approached her, his emotions raw and barely contained. She followed him toward the car park, perhaps to avoid a scene, but the Emirati businessman trailed behind, suspicious and unwilling to let her slip away. Minutes later, the tycoon also appeared, realizing what was unfolding. What began as a confrontation quickly spiraled out of control. Shouts carried into the night, accusations laced with rage. Maricel, cornered by three men who each felt betrayed, found herself trapped in a fight far bigger than she could manage. By the time silence returned to the villa grounds, she had vanished into the night. When dawn broke, her body was found at a deserted construction site, lifeless, her dreams extinguished by the very men she had once believed would give her everything she wanted. The investigation into Maricel's death began with shockwaves across the city. A young woman, connected to men of such stature, found abandoned and lifeless near an unfinished construction site. It was a story that threatened reputations, businesses, and entire families. Police quickly sealed off the area, gathering what little evidence remained. The cause of death was clear: blunt force trauma. But what was unclear was how a woman so closely tied to Dubai's elite had ended up in such a grim place. Detectives turned first to the real estate tycoon, whose villa had hosted the party hours before her body was found. Guests confirmed seeing Maricel there, and some even admitted noticing tension in the air. Surveillance cameras around the villa showed her leaving with the banker, though only faint glimpses were captured. This immediately made him a suspect, but the case did not end there. Forensic teams found a cufflink stained with blood near Maricel's body, one that matched the tycoon's collection. At the same time, fingerprints belonging to the Emirati businessman were discovered on her jewelry, raising questions about what had truly happened that night. The investigation revealed that all three men had converged on Maricel during her final hours. Each interview brought contradictions. The banker insisted he had dropped her off safely after a heated argument. The Emirati businessman claimed he left the villa early, yet phone records placed him near the construction site where the body was discovered. The tycoon denied leaving his property at all, but neighbors recalled seeing his car on the road long after the party had ended. Their lies, layered with arrogance, unraveled quickly under scrutiny. As weeks passed, anonymous tips began to pour in. Someone close to the circle revealed that Maricel had been confronted by all three men, their egos colliding in a storm of jealousy and betrayal. What began as accusations spiraled into violence. In the chaos, she was struck fatally. Panic followed, and instead of seeking help, the men conspired to dispose of her body, each hoping the other's silence would protect them. But pride and fear made their alliance fragile. Small betrayals emerged, and the facade of loyalty collapsed. The trial that followed became one of the most sensational cases in the city's history. Three men of power, once untouchable, were paraded before the public as criminals bound together by greed and pride. For Maricel, who had once dreamed of security and success, the end was cruel. Her ambition had drawn her into a world where power was a weapon, and in that world her life was the price.